And welcome back to On the RiZe show with me, your host, Giles Thomas. We're joined for this very special Ukraine special kind of follow-up report with Wayne Anthony, the man that went out there to Poland. Wayne, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome, Giles. Yes, I'm back.
Mate, so obviously people might have seen the first part where we interviewed you, where you were literally boots on the ground out in Poland, volunteering. Just take us through again what basically sparked you to kind of go out there and do this.
Okay, so I'll take you from the beginning. It was a month ago when it all happened. I was away with my wife at the weekend, and you're watching it on television like you do, and then obviously I'm switching it off and going out for a meal, and I'm thinking, this is wrong. This is not right for me. It just sort of felt wrong. I can only explain it as like a burning desire, literally from your head and your heart. And that's how I'd sort of explained it before, where sometimes you'll obviously sort of think, oh, I feel like doing that. This was just a lot stronger. So literally from seeing that when it first all happened, which is now like 4 weeks ago, within 3 or 4 days, I was just kind of compelled to watch it. And the reason why I was watching it was I felt like I wanted to go. And so I was kind of doing my own work at the same time as watching it on TV and knowing where it was and what was happening in certain, sort of Odessa and Lviv and Kyiv and Mariupol and sort of stuff. And that was it. I made the decision within a week. And it took me another sort of couple of days to organise a flight. And my theory being, which I know obviously a lot from Great Britain and all over the world, were travelling in vehicles and taking things over. I felt I knew what I was capable of doing, which is logistics, getting on with people and just sort of, boots on the ground. So I packed my stuff, I set off, and I did exactly what I wanted to do, which was when I arrived in Krakow, I literally went to the train station. When I went to the train station, you have to sign as a volunteer. Everything has to be right and legit. So I took my passport and driving licence. That was in a queue for like an hour with other wonderful people.
So other volunteers that had all kind of just literally done what you'd done? Absolutely.
There was a guy from France who could speak well English, so, we're having a conversation with him. There was another guy from Great Britain. So all these people were there for the same desire, which was to help. That is the word, to help. That was it. So once we'd got us a viz on, the right credentials and the badges and stuff, we were taken down to a train station, the platform 1, and they sort of said, right, this train's coming in at, I think it was something like 23 minutes past 7 in the evening. And when it arrived, I'd never had an experience like that. For one, the train was like twice as long. So it had probably, I'm guessing, but say 15 carriages.
Okay.
So it was ridiculously long. When it pulled up and all these ladies and children and grandmas got off, I just started crying. I just kind of, because I knew exactly, I'd built my moment up to that time. And so seeing it was like, oh my God, this is it. It's for real. Look at all these people, look where they've moved from and where they've come from. You had to be also conscious as well of, even though, yes, I took some videos and some pictures, you didn't want to be invasive on them, because you could see the distress, you could see the trauma on the faces. Times that by 1,000, which were coming off this train, it was just overwhelming. But literally within seconds, you realise that they needed baggages moving, and they had cats and dogs in boxes and, dogs inside the courts and things. And so, it was from there, from moving in what we call from A to B, which was taking them down into an area where they could get a fresh drink. Actually, they had for pet food and all that sort of stuff, so they had phones with, where they could recharge, they could change the SIMs, they were giving all this, everything obviously was all for free. And they had a counselling kind of area as well. They had a built-up area which was like, I could only say it's maybe like a doctor's, like a small hospital, that sort of type of thing. This is all in the train station at Krakow.
Okay.
So I spent, I would say, probably about 4 or 5 hours up until about 1, 2 o'clock that evening. And then there wasn't a train until the morning. So leaving there and going back and just sort of getting my head down. What was kind of remarkable was all that travelling, and all of a sudden then you saw it. When you see something on television
on a screen.
Yeah. When you see things on social media, okay, you kind of get it, you know what it's, but oh my God, when you're there and you see it and you feel it and you can sense it and the drama, everything, it's overwhelming.
What was the predominant kind of mood and feeling? What was it actually like, the weight of it?
Never experienced anything like it.
Really, ever?
Yeah, and I don't think I ever will again, unless I go back there. So that's how, you won't have done. No human being would have done it unless they've gone to a war zone, a particular area where you have got, millions. I believe now, it is going up to over 10 million, which have kind of moved to different areas.
Yeah.
Some of them have obviously moved out of the country. But I believe Poland, where I was at that moment in time, it was 2.2 million. So you can only imagine those trains moving, and you can also what you've got to try to appreciate and understand. Those people have no idea where they're going. Absolutely no idea. Nothing.
So they literally was just, okay, just get us out of here and just get us to safety.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can only imagine that when those people are there in front of you, they don't know what they're doing in the next hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, a day. Where am I going? What I'm doing? They don't understand any of the other languages. The Ukraine, like I don't understand Ukrainian. So you can only, and that's what you have to absorb. That's what you have to take in. That's where you sort of see. But that's when actually at the same time that gives you the incredible motivation.
Right.
The motivation to do what I'm doing. And straight away I felt I was here for a purpose. That's what I was doing. It was just,
Because I was wondering, I was like, do you get out there and just feel completely overwhelmed or helpless? Or do you feel, like you said, I am actually here for a good reason and I do believe I can help?
Yeah, definitely. I suppose that's the person who, I met some wonderful people. So they came literally from, a father and son from Hawaii. A guy from Seattle.
Wow.
Another gentleman, wonderful man in his 50s, literally was a hunter and a fisherman in Alaska.
Come all that way.
All that way.
Wow.
So we all had the same reason, didn't we? So when you're meeting those, you know that you're doing the right thing, and that's the main sort of thing. So actually, what I found was I worked incredibly hard for like 10 days, and you can sort of tell with my voice or whatever, it's a little bit sore. And the reason for that is because we were working in -10.
Is that how cold it was?
-10. From literally 6 or 7 o'clock in the evening once the sun went down, which was around 5 o'clock. It dropped from 3 to 4 to 5 to literally by 8, 9 o'clock at night, it was -10.
Whoa.
And you're working outside then with trucks and stuff. But the weird part of that is what you're telling yourself is that doesn't matter. That does not matter. And the reason why that doesn't matter is look at all these people, what you're there to help with. So wherever you find it from, because you do find it, you have an abundance of energy. You literally have this really like desire to work and work hard, and all these other people are all there. So you're in like a unity, when you're passing parcels and moving things around, and it doesn't matter how heavy those bags are and all these sorts of things. It doesn't matter. You just graft, you just work. Well, that's certainly how I felt. And
that's proper physical, that's really physical work, and in extreme circumstances. Environment, sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, as I said, I'd not had that experience before. It's like, when we go into a gym and we have to motor save ourselves, you've got to obviously train and you have to, get yourself into the zone. This seemed to come natural. It was just all of a sudden, you just got stuck in and that was it. And so, the other people did. And so when you're all there sort of together, that's where you get the motivation from. As I said, it's an experience I've not had before. I won't have unless I go back to something like that. So it didn't matter if I were doing 10, 14. One of the days we did 16 hours.
Wow, okay.
So I was up at
extreme.
7 o'clock. I was there for 7:30, and we finished at something like 2, 3 o'clock that night, the following.
Okay.
But we were informed that there were 16 trucks coming in that afternoon.
Yeah.
And so you've got 16 trucks. I think they were from Italy. You've got 16 trucks which have travelled a long way. And so you're there you can't sort of say, oh, well, yeah, I'm off home, or because, for the first 2 nights, which I explained, I slept in the gents' toilets.
Yeah, you said.
In this shopping centre. And then, bit of luck, somebody sort of mentioned, there's a chance of an Airbnb, which was literally on a farm. So I slept in a bedroom with a shower, and that was wonderful. But a lot of the volunteers were sleeping in the gents' toilets and like rooms which were converted from a shopping centre into this huge humanitarian place. Did
you speak to any of the other volunteers? I mean, you said like guys from Alaska and America, and what was their kind of did you all kind of have the same motivations for being there and the same reason? They were basically sparked by what they were seeing and feeling and just wanted to help.
Most definitely, so obviously taking you from the train station, which was a crack hour the following morning, I drove down, which was about a 6-hour journey on my own. I don't mind doing that. I'm up for that. So when I got there and listened to the American accent, I was straight, talking to those, and literally we're talking within hours. They'd sort of give me, certain things to do, which were unloading trucks and stuff. And I'm savvy and switched on enough to sort of, know what to do and how to do it. And it's logistics of, because an example of that is when a truck pulls up, the back of it opens up. You've got a 40-foot truck full of amazing stuff, but it's not like on pallets, because these are not kind of professionals.
Sorry, just to interrupt. What was on the trucks? Was it aid?
Aid.
What kind of things were on there?
Okay, so we're talking baby clothes, baby food, water, medicines, clothes, camping equipment.
Okay.
Sleeping bags.
Makes sense.
All those sorts of things were on these trucks. Well, so obviously the people which are good for doing it, good reasons, but you then had to take it off these trucks, and then you had to sort of split it up onto, let's say, 17 different pallets.
Okay.
So you would have baby food, you would have nappies, you would have, sort of medicines. So then you had to do that. And then wrap it up, and then actually move it into this warehouse, which was obviously the shopping centre. And you obviously had to recall where it was going.
Yeah.
So one of the guys, Alex, which was an amazing guy, again, he'd come from Seattle. He works on computers, and we all had the same thing. So through that process, we'd have, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes to have a drink of water. We were all saying the same things. It's amazing that you're here. But they would then reply, but it's amazing that you're here too.
Yeah.
And so that was the same. And one of the interesting things which I did say to all of them at some point, and I tried to sort of, say, what you're here for, what's your sort of reasons? And every single one says, why.
Yeah.
You know why. I don't have to explain myself. You've got the same desire in your heart, as I have. I'm here to help. And what I can do, I will help. And that's it. And so all those people from Hawaii, from Italy, from France, I met some unbelievable people. And we all had the same agenda, and that was there to help.
Yeah. The thing is, you're walking into something and you don't know what. Did you even know what exactly you'd be doing, or did it just not matter?
It didn't matter, and that's where obviously some people maybe would stay at home and do things, which is wonderful. They would go to their local town, wherever that may be, to drop off items and aid and stuff like that, which is good. Some people may put their hand in the pocket and give some money, which is also good. But for me, I knew I was capable of doing something on logistic sides, and that was the same as these other guys. So the answer to that question, no, I had no idea what I was going to be doing. I sort of knew what I was capable of doing, and it was perfect. So literally, as I pulled up in this huge car park, went out, listened to these American voices, said, this is what I'm capable of doing, and literally within an hour, I was unloading trucks. All that evening. And then the following morning, you felt like it was kind of some kind of work or something like, but what was wonderful, you were united together. And that was it. And you just literally, we had different jobs to do. One of the interesting ones, which was kind of like, as I said, the first morning, we were allowed to go into the shopping centre, and there were some huge, massive boxes. And yes, they smelt a little bit, and it was close. And obviously, as I'm pulling them out, I'm saying, wow, these smell a bit. This is, well, actually, yeah, that is from all these Ukrainians and all these people which have moved, they've not changed for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. You can imagine.
God, yeah.
There's no showers in a shopping centre, so they designated certain areas for them to go in, take those clothes off, and put clothes back on, and just use, let's say, baby wipes or a towel.
Oh.
So all those clothes were in the boxes, which I was then saying, wow. But then once I've been told that, it didn't matter. Because you're thinking, well, yeah, look, you know, so those were moving moments. Because I'm saying, God, these stink. And they went, yeah, do you want to know why? And I was like, oh, wow. So that was my job one particular afternoon. Each time you went, you had different jobs. Eventually, after 3-4 days, once the Polish army, which was actually extremely good, they were very good. They acknowledged you. They knew what you were there for.
Yeah.
They used to let on to you. They were absolutely fine, and they did work as a team. They were incredible. There was about 1,000 of them there, all in different sort of areas. So each morning you would let on, and you just got stuck in, and you started working. And you know, one of the mornings or one of the days, I enjoyed it because I was working with the army guys, and we were putting medicines. And when you realise as well, when you're putting in medicines, like we're talking morphine, and we're talking some strong A-class, medicines, you think, wow, that's, you know, it's not just bandages and not just, you know, this was the proper stuff, the real deal.
Yeah.
And so that we're all obviously going to the hospitals and stuff, you know.
Well, thing is, even like, I mean, I'm diabetic, and if I had to flee this house right now, that would have to be the first. Insulin would have to be one of the first things I'd grab. Yeah. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble, you know. And there's millions of these people, and they are going to have medical conditions.
Absolutely. So, you know, you will have seen it on television, you know, where there were some cancer patients, some young children.
Yep.
You know, so they obviously are on meds of some description. So you can only imagine that they've been moved from A to B, and they were on coaches, and you know, some children with special needs and from orphanages and stuff like that. You know, you've got very young babies. Which need obviously care and looking after. You know, I mean, there's stories of what we'd heard. You know, literally they had babies downstairs in the bunkers. You know, so how did they get looked after? You know, literally they had to do it between themselves. So all those things, you get to hear about all those stories, and you see it. That's the thing. You know, you see this on a day-to-day basis. You know, literally they were moved just from. Coming in from Ukraine in coaches and obviously on the train stations, and you had between 8,000 and 10,000 in there a day. God. So I'd worked it out over that 10 days I was there. 100,000
people,
kids, children, grandmas. 100,000. You can't, you know, it's hard to kind of comprehend that sort of size and that, you know, amount of humanity and stuff, what was going on.
What I'd like to know is, I mean, obviously you got to the train station and you said it hit you emotionally, but the thing is, day after day, do you become desensitized to what you're seeing and feeling, or do you just go into kind of like a work mode? I mean, does it keep hitting you? Because, I mean, there's only so much you can take emotionally before you have to adjust and go, okay, I'm going to compartmentalize this, and I've just got to focus on what I'm doing because if you're looking at all this misery around you and all this stress and drama, it's like, how do you actually every single day working in -10 at night and 10-12 hour days, how do you get your mindset around that to keep doing what you're doing for 10 days straight?
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, the first with the train station, when it pulled up and all those people come out, whoosh, it hits you, overwhelms you, you know, you shed some tears. Absolutely. And what I found was, after a couple of days, you were so focused on unloading these boxes and working and grafting. The only moments what you had when you were having, like, say, a little rest, so you would have 5 or 10 minutes of just, shall we say, just sort of sat, and you would have a moment. Yeah. And that was the moment. It's like, oh my God. And so you saw, you know, as I said, we're talking not hundreds, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands.
I can imagine. I can't imagine how overwhelming that must be. all the time. Like you said, 100,000 people in one day. I can't imagine the weight of that, taking that on and seeing that and experiencing and immersing yourself in that, you know?
Well, that's it, Giles. And also as well, what you've got to remember, that was 24 hours a day. It didn't say stop at a particular time.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't, it goes quiet at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in an evening. No, that's 24 hours. So
Constant.
as we'd unloaded and we stopped, let's say, you know, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, whatever that night, and you'd put it all into the warehouse, the following morning it'd gone.
Right.
And we're talking tonnage, we're talking, you know, as I said, 16 trucks. We'd offloaded them, we'd put them into pallets, we'd put them into a designated area where they needed to be. The following day that had gone.
Right.
Which is good because we knew that it was going obviously to where it needed to go. So then your day would start again. And so it was only those moments where you would have, as I said, after a couple of days, you would sit and you would have that moment. And that moment would rush and you'd think, wow. But as I said, nothing mattered to us as in, this is hard work. Oh, my God, I'm tired. Oh, my God, I'm hungry. That really did not matter. And it was the same for everybody who I met. That part of it did not matter. What mattered was what we were doing and the reasons, good reasons for doing it.
Aside from the, you know, of what you're experiencing in that side of things, you said at one point, I think you said you were like 25 kilometers away from literally bombs coming in. Were you fearful in that situation? Were you worried? I mean, obviously your wife probably ringing, checking on you, making sure you're okay. And you said in the, you know, the when we had you on before, you said you promised that you wouldn't go anywhere near where the actual conflict was. You know, he promised you because you got your family in you.
Yeah.
You know, what was it? Did you ever actually think, okay, what if this comes really, really close in the next couple of days?
I think I'd already mentally prepared myself for that in here.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'd already sort of prepared for what ifs.
Okay.
How? And just sort of thinking, what happens if a bomb drops? What happens if somebody tries to shoot at his car?
Chemical weapons.
Those sorts of things. Yeah, I'd kind of mentally prepared myself for it. And so therefore, if I'd mentally prepared myself, shall we say, for the worst, actually anything else was okay, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd prepared what ifs, and those what ifs didn't happen. As I said, we could see from a distance, it was about sort of 12, 13 kilometres away, and you could see the smoke. That sort of thing.
You can smell it, the smoke, probably. I mean, did you hear anything?
No.
Okay. Because I can imagine that would really mess with your head, hearing explosions and.
Yeah, I guess so. But you know, listen, I was having conversations with guys. One gentleman called Mike, who was Ukrainian, and he was literally every 3 days driving 3 of them straight into the war zone areas, as in bombs being dropped. You know, shootings, explosions and stuff, and he'd gone to, I think it was Odessa. It's a long way. So when you're thinking he's doing that, mine ain't such a big deal.
Right.
That's how I felt.
Okay.
That was me personally. Now, obviously, on my kind of, shall we say, gang of the lads who I were working for, there was one guy called James. As I said, he was from Alaska. He was a state trooper.
Okay.
So he's seen some stuff. He has the abilities. He normally does shooting and fishing and things like that. So obviously he's mentally prepared. He's also been in, you know, those sorts of areas possibly before. He shoot guns. You know, so as I said, I kind of kept on looking at those thinking, yeah, but look what they're doing. You know, I'm only doing this. So it didn't seem such a big deal to me. You know, again, when you... I'd literally kind of sort of prepared myself for it, so and I felt like I did all right.
Yeah. So I mean, did you plan to go out there for 10 days initially?
I'd planned to go actually possibly a week or a month.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I didn't have a return ticket.
Okay. Did you? Okay.
No. I'd got a one-way ticket.
Oh wow.
At that moment in time, literally the rucksack. Some changes of clothes, literally very basic.
One thing, how did you get there?
Okay, so Leeds and Bradford, straight over to Krakow on a plane, made sure that I'd organised a hire car, drove down to the area of the border, and then I think I told you for a couple of nights I slept in the gents' toilets. And then I'd managed to organise, there was a local farmer working, woodcutter's farm, and I slept in one of their rooms on a bed. You know, so, yeah. But I did, you know, it was, am I going to be there for a week, fortnight, or a month? I must admit, after the 10, 11 days, 12 days of not stopping, I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Unbelievably exhausted. Now, I would have probably stayed a little bit longer, but actually that team, which was these guys from America, they'd already been there a week prior to me arriving. They were also tired and exhausted.
Right.
The father and son from Hawaii were going back over to Hawaii. The good friend who I got on well with, Alex, he was going back to Seattle. Back to his job, and then James, who I got on very well with, which was the state trooper. Would you believe it or not? Now he's signed up in the Foreign Legion.
Oh wow!
And he's gone in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the upsetting part of that is the other guys. I've got their numbers. We do a little bit of WhatsApping. How are you? Stuff like this.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
James gone.
Right.
So they ghost them. So when they sign up, they change the names, identity, no phones. And when they signed up as well for that war, they signed up indefinitely. Oh, so wow. if that war goes on for 1 year or 10 years, you're in for the duration.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know. So, I mean, obviously there was a rotation of kind of like volunteers, because it's like physically and emotionally, like you've alluded to, there's only so long before you burn out, and then you, like you said, the guys that were there a week before, you could see the effect that was on them. So what was it, like a week, 2 weeks, and then it just basically new volunteers come in?
Yeah, that's right. And also,
because it's intense, isn't it?
Yeah, it's intense. And the interesting part of that story, I could have actually, shall we say, stayed for another maybe 3 or 4 days, what we call, let's say, people say chilling out. Okay. So I could have chilled out before maybe me to go back, because I'd actually sort of booked this room on this farm. The hire car was for a couple of weeks. I could have actually changed that to longer. And my wife sort of said, well, why don't you just relax now? You've done 10 days. Chill out for a couple of days before you come back. And I said, I can't do that. I couldn't go and chill out knowing 5 miles down the road there's all these people coming in every single day. So I had to sort of make that decision. Do I regroup with a new team and carry on, or do I come home now and just try to sort of relax and come away from it? You had to come away from it. There's no way I could have relaxed or chilled out for a couple of days.
How often did you speak to your wife?
Well, where we was, yes, you could get internet via the shopping centre, but probably every other day. Okay.
What was? I mean, I go into detail, but what was the kind of conversations like? Were they tense? Were they emotional? Was she just? What was the dynamic, and how was the feeling generally as those 10 days wore on?
I obviously had to be careful on what I put. Because otherwise it might have been a little bit worrying.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, so
understandable.
So I didn't want to worry you too much, even though, as I said, you know, one of the times when we drove into Leave, which was a fair old way, you know, we went into there to drop off some of the medicines, and we slept downstairs, not knowing actually that was part of the morgue, but we slept in another room. And then the fed us, and then the following day we drove back. You know, so that story didn't really get told until I got back.
Right, okay.
You know, so I have to be mindful of that, because I always sort of promised my wife that I wouldn't get myself into a very dangerous situation, even though I was going into a war zone, as you know, the Far East and the West. There is it's a big country, so there is, we're talking, thousands and thousands of miles between these different cities and stuff. So, we spoke sort of every other day, but when I went back to this wood log cabin, this place, there was nothing. So there was no internet, no TV, there was sort of nothing. So I used to make sure that I would just send her a message saying, I'm okay, I've had a busy day. Maybe send her a couple of pictures, and obviously I was doing vlogs every other day.
Right, okay.
Through Instagram,
yep.
And through Facebook, so, and again, you had to be careful. Yes, I would have probably liked to have maybe interviewed some of the Ukrainians and some of them what had left, but again, without getting lots of permission,
right,
you couldn't just go up to them.
Okay.
Which was a good thing because they were being protected.
Okay. So you couldn't actually, because I asked you this on the last one. I said, have you spoke to anyone? And you were like, well, I'm busy. And now you're saying, you've actually got to ask permission as well.
Yeah, that's right. You weren't allowed to go up to any of them, to have kind of conversations, because the police there, the Polish police, were really keen.
Wow.
And I mean really keen.
Okay.
And they're kind of quite intimidating with all the Glock 9s and AK-47s and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And over there, they've still got the masks on and things. And one of them, as I said, when I'd managed to do a little bit of video, and they were straight up to me, asking me questions. What have you done? These sorts of things. And an interesting story, while we were there after 3 days, I was having what I call a little break, and just further down the line, which is where all the trucks were, they grabbed hold of a guy, put a hood over his head, took him backwards into a van and took him away.
Who was he?
So he was a Russian spy.
Oh my God, okay, wow.
So,
and
it was like, and I only knew that 3 or 4 hours later, bits of information. I was like, what's just happened there? And they said, he was giving information back to the Russians. So with that being said, you knew what they were doing was meant to be that way, if you see what I mean, so that who am I? I've just turned up, I've got a badge on and a viz on. Who am I? What's my agenda? So you've obviously got that as well. So you didn't mind the police checking you, stopping you every single day when you were driving in.
It's for your safety
out.
And everyone's safety.
So that's understandable, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's when you go through passport control, they're checking you out. So that was the same. And it actually got stricter and stricter and stricter. That's what I'd noticed. And it felt like it was changing the field, because they'd heard just before I'd arrived that there was a story, which is a true story, of a coach pulling up. All the children and the mums got on this coach, and it drove off. And when it drove off, they'd realised that they didn't have any of the correct paperwork, and there were human trafficking.
Oh my God. And
they'd realised this, and the police followed them. They managed to stop the coach. They then had to get another coach and get them off. You imagine that? So as much as there's, lots of people and lovely volunteers doing wonderful things, then there's these bad people taking advantage of that situation.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, literally, all these things are, because like, even you set up things like COVID, and like they were still making precautions, and like human trafficking was that they're probably taking advantage of the situation because they see such a volume of people. People are distracted. There's this bigger thing going on, and they're thinking, right, guys, we've got an opportunity to really, increase our trafficking.
That's right, and that's what
horrible,
happened.
Isn't it?
It's
Isn't
horrible.
It horrible?
And
profiteering.
And so that was happening, this was happening apparently quite regular. So that's why they had to put so many things in place to protect them. A car, a van, we want to give them a lift, we want to take them somewhere, we want to help them, and it's like, well, who are you? So obviously there was a lot of that going on. So the police were there to police that. The soldiers and the army were to help with logistics. So they all had and then obviously you had the humanitarian sort of side. You had obviously different sectors of people coming together, but on the most biggest scale ever. Apparently now it's the same level as World War II on the amounts of the scale of what's happening. And still to this day, it's okay that I've now come back, but just to tell you, I'm still in touch with these people, which are still travelling in to the war zone areas. I'm trying to help them, as in I have some doctor friends of mine who are trying to put a package of what we call A-class medicines for the hospital. And I'm still doing that every single day. So not only have I come back, I'm still trying to do things for them.
Because I was thinking, okay, you've gone out, you've done this amazing work, and you've come back, and how do you feel then? Do you think, okay, I've made a difference, okay, I've done my bit? But you said like I said, I had you on before, you said you were speaking to MPs, and so that has carried on. So you're saying now that has carried on, now you're home. So you still feel like you're trying to get some support. What's the main things that you're doing that you actually, what's the things that you want to achieve now you're back?
So for my own personal thing, I want to achieve getting this wonderful box of medicines to Mike, who's travelling to a particular hospitals in Odessa. I mean, actually, that list is £100,000 worth of stock.
Okay.
And I've been told that by my doctor friend.
Sorry, how did you get hold of that?
So he sent me it. He sent me the
wow.
list. If I can bring it up at some point, or I'll give you it, you can see that list, because that kind of really hits home.
Yeah.
You think, I've never seen a list like that ever.
Yeah.
And it's like ventilators, morphines, tranquilizers, all sorts of stuff. And you think, oh, that hits home, doesn't it? That's like, whoa. So my idea is at the moment is to work on my doctor friends to see if I can, create a box of medicines and get it sent out to a particular area where they can pick it up. We've already found that the logistics of sending it from A to B will only take about 3 days.
Yeah.
We'll organise Mike to go pick it up, and then actually he will drive it right into Odessa.
Okay.
And we'll get emails and we'll get confirmations from the doctors and the surgeons what will sign it off.
Yeah.
So it's done correctly. It's done in the correct manner, and it has to be as well for me to be able to create this wonderful package. So I'm still on it.
Yeah, because there's been boots on the ground. There's actually physically acting and helping, but there are still a lot of things that you are now doing.
Yeah.
You know, because you're a very well connected person. You know, you're very well known. You know, and you're using your contacts, and you know that's how you're helping in a different way now.
Yeah, I mean, literally, as I got on the plane on the way back, I didn't go to sleep. I got on the plane and made a list.
Oh, did you?
I made a list, and that list, I'm on it.
Yeah.
You know, and that list actually got bigger. So the list when I first started was a smallish list, which I think I ticked off of what I wanted to do. And yes, because I know tens of thousands of people, I can open my phone up and think, oh, he'll be good. They'll be good. He'll be good.
Yeah. Because you know a lot of kind of famous people, celebrities, and you know, you've been working in media for many years and stuff like that, and you know, and
oh, I've been on them.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, you've been on them.
Oh, I've been on them. I sent messages out to all these actors and, you know, a couple of A-listers and stuff like that.
Sorry, just to give some context, you've been involved in films and TV in the 80s and 90s and now as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
I mean, I remember you telling me you were involved in like film production and everything else. So, you've been reaching out to them.
Oh, producers, and anything I sort of think was necessary to get hold of. And I don't know if it's the right word, but maybe putting them on a bit of a guilt trip.
Yeah.
You know, listen, I'm
but if it gets them to act.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
it's whatever works, you know.
You know, I do know some very well-known people, so they've had personal messages sent to them.
Yeah.
Look, this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing. And as I sort of said, you know, I do have some doctor friends. And those doctor friends are quite famous. They travel all over the world. They do, wonderful things. One of Dr. Mehmet, who actually sent us a personal message saying what you're about to do will be amazing. He's done it himself. He's been to Afghanistan. He's helped in hospitals and stuff like that, in burns units. That's what he specialises in. So for me, I know what my capabilities are.
And you've used that network to pull strings.
Correct. And that's what I've done. And that's what I'm still doing. And that's what I will keep on doing.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, there's 2 or 3 of them which are considering going back over in April at some point. I don't know if that's necessary for me to just go back to, shall we say, moving parcels and boxes and unloading trucks. I know now what I can do, and which is pretty damn good. If I can get this wonderful package together, as I said, which is a list of £100,000 worth of stuff, and actually send that off and get that, you imagine, I'd love to see that picture as a thank you from the doctors, or a personal vlog from them saying, thank you, Wayne, for what you've done. We've received it. So I'm still on it.
Thing is, it's a knock-on effect. It's like when I saw that you'd done that, because I follow on Instagram, you're my barber, and then I saw it and I thought, wow, he's really done it. He's acted. He's not just talked about it on social media. He's actually gone out there and actually taken action. That inspired me to do this when I had you on, and now get you in here now. And it's like, this is the first kind of thing I've ever done of this type outside of what I do with the bodybuilding media and everything. Yeah. And I just thought, I feel compelled to do something now. It wasn't you guilted me into it. You kind of inspired me into it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, you could work on inspiring, or you could work on probably some of my friends.
It's an emergency, whatever works.
Yeah, absolutely. And look what's going on, this week alone, where they've held concerts and they're doing things. And there's an awful lot of movement, which is brilliant. And what I seem to sort of pick up, certainly when I left, They actually want more money now because they got overwhelmed, which is a good thing with certain things, as in clothes. They had too much clothes. Unfortunately, the last couple of trucks we had to turn away, would you believe it or not? Or parts of those trucks we were saying, actually, we don't need the clothes. It's like, well, but we've brought these clothes all the way from Spain or wherever they were.
You'd rather have portable showers.
Yeah, I mean...
You know, anything, something, you know, it's like, because the needs change, like you said, isn't it? Like in 1 minute, you're like, we need clothes, next, okay, we don't need any. It's constantly evolving and changing, and the situation is adapting for what those refugees and those people need. Yeah,
that's right. And that list now has changed. And yes, over the maybe first couple of weeks, they may have wanted clothes and certain things, but now, you know, items, but now they've changed. And what they are sort of saying out there is, you know, gift money, you know, to whatever those. Yeah. I think the DEC is one, I think is it called. Maybe you'll have to look those up. But yeah, so it's actually now money, because at some point, let's say over the next, say, 3 to 6 months, it's going to evolve of what they want and what they need. And so therefore, if they have, you know, holding cash in a certain place, then at least then it can go to the right place. So
people watching this now, you know, all over the world, what would you say to them if they're watching it on the news? And the thing is, we don't want people to become desensitized or, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Poland or the refugees. What would you, I mean, you said you want to guilt or inspire, whatever works, whatever gets people to, you know, give money, donate something, or do what you did, go out and help. What would you say to anyone that is feeling helpless like you did? But what would you say to them? Anyone?
It's probably what I mentioned before and what I've said, you know, from the beginning. You know, if you're not doing anything, then you need to do something. If you're doing something, maybe do a little bit more. You'll know. And that's it. You know, if I'm to sort of reach out to people there, I'm saying, you'll know what to do and do it. And if you're doing a little bit, just do a little bit more. You know, as I said, for me, you know, I felt necessary for me to go over. I knew what I was capable of doing.
What was the real? I mean, was there like a tipping point where you saw? Because you're a father, you know, you're a husband. You know, you've got you've got a home. You know, these are all things that people have had taken away from them, or they've been separated from. You know, what was the one thing that really tipped you over the edge to go, okay, I'm not just feeling this way now, I'm actually going to do something? What was it?
Probably seeing all those children coming off of trains, and what we've all seen. We've seen all those, you know, mums and grandmas and children where you see them kind of just in a daze, don't they? You can see the shock. You can see that. And if you're a compassionate person, you're a thinker, which I am, that's all it takes. Yeah. Just only imagine yourself in that position. Can you only imagine? That's where I kept on thinking.
So it was that thinking, you know, that made you act?
Yeah, definitely. You know, we're lucky, we're fortunate, and we have a home. We can feed ourselves. We have transport. We have cars. You know, if I want to go out this weekend, I can go out this weekend. Yeah. So all that stopped for me. And so it was, you know, as I said, the weekend just before I went, I was invited to go out for a lovely meal. It was an expensive meal, and I said, no, I'm not doing it. I actually rung them up to say, I'm not doing it, I'm not coming. And they wanted to know why. I said, I'd prefer to give that £200 to the good cause of Ukraine. And that's what I did.
So what was the, what was overall was the hardest part of that whole experience?
I would say probably all of it.
All of it, yeah. Yeah. It's hard to separate, isn't it?
It's hard to separate, you know, from, you know, because, you know, 2 or 3 days before you go, you're obviously organising. You know, I'm a businessman, so I had to organise things, you know, to make sure everything was going to be running smoothly when I'd left. Of course. Including my family. And then, you know, it's literally when you've arrived, the moment for me, which you will have seen the pictures and the videos, was the moment in the train station. That was the first monumental moving moment when that train pulled up.
We've got your Instagram account here. Have you got that video on there? Can we bring that up as a visual? Do you want to just look at the screen and just... I think so, yeah. If you... I'll scroll down. So... Which one is it? Sorry, I'm just going to stay close to the mic.
Okay, so, yeah, I would say probably...
Is it
that's when I went on a peace march.
Oh, right, okay.
You know, so we went to the American embassy.
Do you want me to click on one, or...?
probably if you go further up, let's just have a look. I'm not too. Yeah. So okay, look at that picture there.
This one.
That is an incredible moving picture. So that's when they were just pulling up. Well, what does that say on that boy's face?
Can I just read this? This little boy has no idea on what's just happened to his world, but nothing but the clothes he wears. I was helping out at the train station at the Ukraine border.
Yeah.
Hashtag help Ukraine.
So that, be it a video, that's a picture. But that, you just look at his face. He has no idea what's just happened. His world's just changed.
He was like 4 years old or something.
4 or 5 years of age. That train was absolutely full, as I said, and there was thousands. So those trains were coming in every half an hour and every hour. So that was the thing, where it was like, oh my God. And that's all what you've got to keep on looking at and seeing, and then you do something about it.
Yeah. Should we have a look at something else quickly?
You could probably go to the one where...
the text one?
Yeah, which is, again, I think that's a
sound
video. Yeah, well, that's just explaining from where I was living in the woods.
Oh, wow.
That was where I was coming out of the woods, and then we were going down. So this is when I was actually driving back. I'd lost my voice by then.
Like shades.
It's still, thank you. The sun, as I said, the sun was shining, and I was coming back then, which was after the 10 days, and I was driving back to Krakow. Actually, in the video, unfortunately, you couldn't see from the left-hand side, but there was, and the movement then of the trucks were going down. So it was the army, the Polish army. There were a lot. Hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, I couldn't kind of get them at the times when they were coming past. So yeah, that was just the final sort of day for me, where I was kind of, shall we say, tired. I was very tired.
I remember watching this video, and you just said, because I remember thinking he's going to be absolutely exhausted.
Yeah, just go click onto the one with the guys with the red jackets, which is nice.
This is where
these were So we're moving meds from A to B.
Should we? I'm going to put the sound. I'm going to put the volume on, but I'm going to lower the volume. So
impressive.
They are. Look
at these guys. So impressive, man. So impressive.
So who were the people in the red? They were volunteers.
So they were volunteers. They'd come from Portugal, and that's what we're on about, the clothes. The wooden thingies with the clothes. That's what I was explaining earlier, where the clothes then were all getting taken off. What impressed me was, again, they'd come up with all these vans. They were on it. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were bringing wheelchairs. They actually brought a lot of wheelchairs. And crutches and stuff like that. So again, every single time when you saw these, you just sort of think, oh my. The other video is a bit longer. You can maybe go through that one, which is this one. Yeah.
Okay. Oops, clicked on it already. Do we put sound on this? Is there music on this?
Yeah, you could do. Yeah. So yeah, you can see where they were queuing there. I managed to kind of get some of the sort of shots when we'd actually drove in to leave and stuff.
So obviously you were quite restricted what you could film. They were a bit hot on. You couldn't just go around and just film.
No, we were
randomly.
So that was where they were trying to stop. They'd gone to the American embassy to stop the bombs in the sky. So they were trying to close it down, so I went and filmed it all, and before you know it, I'm in the Peace March giving it.
Did you
I was there. I was joined in.
Well,
I was ready for getting up. This guy, amazing. Ukrainian. He just come over. They just found this gentleman. So that guy that just found him. This is at the train station just beforehand.
Do you know what? I've been visualizing all the things you've been telling me so far, and I tell you, when you see it, it hits differently.
Most definitely, as I said, when you see it, it hits you. If you've maybe got, good imagination, and that's why I was sort of saying, when you're there, it's not only you're seeing it, you're feeling it.
Yeah.
That's where you really felt it.
What were you saying just then?
So I was showing there on the video where obviously all the pets had been hungry, so they were taking them down to feed them, to look after them. So that was all the food for the pets.
Yeah.
That's where we're waiting again for the next train to sort of pull in. That's when I was ready for setting off to the journey to go down. This is where they were doing all the packaging every single day.
It's a really good video, isn't it? It's a great video.
You can see, as I said, and this what we're explaining. So that would be in an evening. You can see all the trucks in the background. We'd pallet them up, and literally then the following day they'd gone. So then they'd moved on. There's some incredible shots here when you sort of see for all the clothes, and then I think I take you into one of the rooms. Yes, I do. So there's one of the rooms where then all the shoes and the clothes and sort of stuff, so they'd take them all off and then they'd sort of move those. And this is what was happening on a regular basis. And that shop was good. So they were from Italy. They were all doctors and nurses, so they had some strong meds. So those meds then were going straight from
through the night.
Yeah, we look at that for the shoes.
Whoa!
So that's when they were taking them all off and putting them into the boxes, and then taking them away. And then that's when I started working with the Polish army, which were cool. So that was helpful, and they were taking them in every single day, which was mainly all the medicines. That was what they were doing. That's why they had the trucks.
Yeah.
So again, every single day you were seeing, that was the one where the night before they'd come in, they'd taped it all back up with the wrap stretch stuff, because they'd got bomb shrapnel.
Oh
so
my God!
They'd come from Odessa, and it'd taken them 4 days. So when you see, you can see there, as I said, when it's all when they pulled up these trucks, it was like, oh my.
Yeah.
So we're having to do an awful lot. That night, that's when we'd done the 16 hours. So we unloaded a truck there. You can see the truck moving away, and that was at early hours in the morning. Late, what time was that? It was about 5 or 6 o'clock, so it was actually getting light, if I remember.
In the morning?
Yeah. These guys were wonderful. Pat and Martin, all the way from Dublin. You imagine that? Drove from Dublin. It was like, oh my God. They'd raised 20,000. They drove from Dublin, and then this is another coach what pulled in. I think they'd come from, that might have been the Portugal one or Spain again. So that's what kept you going every single time, and you would acknowledge each other. You would acknowledge each other for the same reasons. We're here to do good.
Yeah.
We're here to help.
Should we just pause that, or do you want to keep it?
Yeah, and as I said, this is where there was the movement constantly, all the time of 8,000, 10,000 going in a day, and then moving on.
God.
So for me to get my energy, that's all I needed to see. The energy was amazing. So I don't think I would have probably been able to pull that energy if I was back here in the UK. You got the energy and you got inspired by those people over there and working with those. And it's not only when I came back when I realised how tired I was after doing, that.
Were you completely wiped out for a couple of days?
Yeah. Even though we were doing seriously long hours, what I found was your body wanted to sleep, but your mind was still awake,
right? Because
of what you were seeing. So you would, sort of sleep deprivation was a little bit, for me. So you were sort of struggling to sort of sleep, but you got up and you carried on and you carried on.
But there's so many people that are needing people like yourselves, needing that help, needing that assistance. So I can imagine I can't because I've never been in a situation like that. But So are you glad you went?
Oh, most definitely. I would really, really recommend it to everybody. At some point of their life, whatever age they are, you need to do something like humanitarian, whatever that is, Africa, wherever, you need to do it. Because it's so good for you at the same time. And what you do come across is the most wonderful people I've ever met.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine you've talked about how stressful and how traumatizing and everything, but obviously was it quite uplifting at the same time? Yeah, because definitely. You were actually doing something that was actually making a difference to people?
Yeah, one of the things what I do remember each evening when I was sort of, going to bed and going to sleep, you kind of just felt, I'm doing something here.
Yeah.
And so there's some reward, you're getting some personal reward from it, which I'd never maybe had before in such a strong, sort of compelling sort of way. Yeah. Because I've never done anything like that before.
So that was my next question. So you've never done anything of that nature before?
No, I've done the usual things where I've raised money. I've raised money for lots of causes.
That's right,
in the past. Yeah. I've done all sorts of stuff, and I always will. But this is the first time I've actually physically gone to another country. Not spoke the language and just winged it, however you want to put it. I just went there and did it, and it was good. It was good.
Wayne, I think we're going to leave it there. But I feel because I wanted to follow up and get you physically in the studio because I wanted to we've got visuals, we're hearing firsthand, because it's like there's people out there maybe that just still don't get the magnitude of something like this happening. I mean, I wanted to focus more on what you experienced rather than the overall, okay, why is this happening? Rather than the actual realities of it, rather than the politics and the kind of the reasoning behind this whole kind of atrocity. Really, it's the atrocity. It's not. I don't even want to call it a war, but the fact that you actually did something like that, I just think it's inspiring. Because, like I said, I wouldn't be sat here right now with you if you hadn't have done this. And now people are going to be listening and watching, because you can watch the media and people can write it off in their heads as maybe as, oh well, it's manufactured or this, and you can have distrust of the media. But when you actually have someone that's physically here and actually saying, no, I was there, and takes you right through it, I think there's real power in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things which I did find with this, that there was also lots of other wonderful people out there doing it.
Yeah. And
that was nice, where you were seeing acts of kindness. So that's where what I brought back, and that's why I would sort of say to anybody, at some point to their life to do something like what I've done.
Isn't it crazy how something like that, so awful, can probably give you more faith in humanity, not less? It
was good. Yeah. If I could pull anything from that, that's what I've seen. I feel like I've done my bit, still doing my bit, still going to do it. And sort of through that process, I met some wonderful people, some incredible, wonderful people.
Wayne Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the RiZe and sharing your experience.
You're welcome. Thank you, Giles.